Hello, and welcome to the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. In this podcast, I will guide you through my faith and mental health journey to dispel the stigma surrounding mental illness and to create an empowering resource for those who wish to discover more about these topics. I pray that this podcast will not only bless you, but that it will bring growth and healing to our communities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rough Edges. This episode is part 2 of my interview with Mzwa, all about how men could find hope in healing. If you would like to hear the full discussion, I suggest you check out part 1, and I hope you enjoy today's episode.
Told myself I'm not going to make that a limiting self-belief. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not ashamed to say, oh, I weigh this much in terms of weight, whether I can have excuses and say it's bipolar or what. I weigh that much and I'm going to gym and I'm losing weight. So it's making a difference. I'll talk about my mental health ideas I'm having. They'll see the rupture, the big bang, the creativity. They will see the depression and everything like that. And they will see my coping mechanism. They will walk with me in the journey. I'm not hiding anything with them. And that's me being honest. I've had people come to me and have these conversations because they were inspired by what I said. And I direct them further. Like it can even be at work. Then I'm honest about my finances. Like when I was unemployed, my portfolio moved from about 100,000 to basically zero. Do have a daughter. So I would be honest about things like that, things that people are not honest about. Then people start having conversations with me. I mean, 100,000 is about 6K, 6,000 US dollars. It's not much, but it was a lot for me in South Africa that I haven't shared in my journey, talking about this is my rock bottoms. This is what I'm doing to improve. I start having people talk to me about those things and trust me. For example, at work, they've asked me to actually have a discussion with them, even though I'm not the one who approached them and said, I want to talk about personal finance at work. It's happened in my scholarship, the Chicks Travel Fellowship. We had master classes where I gave a master class on mental health. So that's just one thing. I do speak on the body side. I speak about my journey with fasting. So I fast from basically the whole day up until 6 p.m. Sometimes I take breaks on weekends. That is good for my spirituality. It does help my body as well, to lose weight and things like that. I'm not an expert in that. I've watched podcasts on it, but I'm not the one to tell you the science behind it. For me, my primary reasons for fasting is the spiritual side, but I just know that it has benefits. So that's just me saying I do these things for myself. It's like I'm performing for myself, but there's people who are peeking through the windows, watching this guy perform for himself at the shower. And they also come to the house and say, we saw you sing that song. Can you teach us that song? We saw you dance that routine. Can you teach us a few things? And then we share notes. To tell you about the triple M method, that is something that came to me. I was still in university, so probably 2013, where I have M for mind. So M is for mental health and mindset. And then the other M is for money, and money is basically for personal finance. The other M is for matter. And by matter, just being cheeky, and I'm talking about the body. I saw that there's a link between how you handle your finances, your body, and your mind. The primary one is the mind, but everything you do will affect those three. For example, in your mind, your emotions, you're not feeling so good, you're feeling stressed out. So that means you purchase a lot of fast food, drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, or even harder drugs. That's you trying to take care of your mind, right? Like you're trying to cope. What's going on in your mind and your mental health, you're stressed out. But then the consequences of that is you using your finances. You might have to suffer financially. Your credit score might be affected. You might have to pay those debts. You might be stressed again in the future. Your body is taking a cost on that. You're damaging your body right now, and then you're going to need hospitalization in the future. So having to balance these three. And what I had recognized in the past is that sometimes things have this ripple effect. When one thing happens, which is you choosing to go through the fast food and the alcohol, it has a ripple effect on other things. I realized that can put you on a vicious cycle. One thing leads to the other, and then it just goes on and on. The same can be said with a virtuous cycle where one good habit leads to another. So, for example, if I'm fasting, I'm not wasting money during lunch buying fast food. I'm saving that money, but it's also good for my body and my mental health. Those things lead one to another. So that's what I mean when I say the triple M system, which is mind, money, and matter.
Hello again. Before you dive into the rest of today's episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your support and for hitting that play button. If you want to expand on that support, here are 3 ways that you can do so. 1. Leave a review. If anything in today's episode resonated with you, or you would want to share about how the podcast changed your life, you can do so by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or Podchaser. 2. Check out our shop. The Rough Edges shop is a faith based, women of color owned online shop where you can get a variety of products from tote bags, journals, t shirts, and more. 20% of the proceeds go to a mental health organization. So check it out at roughedgespodcast.com/shop. 3. Connect on social media. Rough Edges is on a wide variety of social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and more. If you want to connect outside of listening to the podcast episodes, you can do so on these platforms. If you have any questions, you can check out the episode description or stay to the end for more information. Now, enjoy your episode. Wow, that's actually really insightful because you're right. It's all connected, like your mind, your body, and your soul. And so, like you said, when you make one choice to do something to appease your mind by getting fast food or doing all these extra things, we have to be a little bit careful about what we call self care. Like, we have to be a little wise about that. So I fall into this trap too, where it's like, oh, I had a bad day, so let me get a donut or slushy or something. It's just a repeated cycle of you doing these things as a coping mechanism for your mental and emotional aspects, but then you're harming your physical aspects, you're harming your bank account by doing this every time. So that is something to think about and something I also want to tap into because I am one of those people that's like, hey, I had a bad day, so I'm gonna get an ice cream.
Definitely, we all like that. It's human. The only thing I'm highlighting is as long as you are grown up about it and know what the cost is and you're
Yeah.
willing to pay the cost of that burger and ice cream, I'm willing to take it because right now I need to survive. As long as you are happy when you make that choice, you are
Okay.
making an informed decision, then it's fine. That's why I've told clients before, buy that wrap, buy that burrito. We also have Mexican restaurants here in South Africa and Cape Town especially. As long as you are empowered with the knowledge and you know that right now I'm looking at my bank, I'm looking at my mind, I'm looking at my body, and right now I need to take care of my emotions. You are making that decision. That's why, for me, in my advocacy, I try not to pretend that I'm the teacher, the guru, the expert. I'm nothing but a servant. I'm your servant telling you what you already know. You
Mm,
already know these things. I'm just
yeah.
mere reminder. Reminders get ignored all the time. You can ignore this reminder.
It's very true. I also wanted to talk about your experience with your faith and how that informed your mental health journey. As a person growing up in Cape Town, what is it like in terms of a faith-based community and how society views mental health in Cape Town? What is that experience like?
Thank you so much for that question, Sarah. So basically, just to add to that, Cape Town, I came in 2011 to study at University of Cape Town, but growing up was in KwaZulu-Natal, where I said it's a Shaka Zulu's province. I was born in KZN, a small town. I was born in Christ the King Hospital, but grew up in Durban and basically Zulu Nation. My family is from Mount Frere, which is in Transkei during the days of apartheid. It was called Transkei. The stories are similar, especially for Black people. God has been so good to me. And I know I say that people who know my journey has seen my challenges and they think, Mzwa, how can you say your life was easy? I'm not saying my life was easy, but I see God's hand protecting me in a lot of things. It could have been much worse, but God's mercy has been there. God's hand continues to be there. For example, you did mention that some people do not have that support of Black church in general, but in particular, Black church when they have any mental episode or anything like that. I was lucky because my church, of course, they will look at it through their lens. They're not going to be well versed on mental health, but through their lens, it's you had an experience. We don't know if that came from God or if it was demons, but we're coming to pray for you so that you
Mhm,
have guidance in whatever journey you have. Jesus has called us to choose the small route, not the wide gate, just to make sure that in your journey you have the right path. In 2013, I was in Cape Town, so I was not with my church, but I remember calling my pastor a lot. People like us, when we experience mania, have racing thoughts, ideas flooding, the floodgates are open wide. So it's important to have therapy. Of course, therapy is limited, it's charged. You speak for an hour, then you go, which is not even close to being enough for this ocean of thoughts that come with bipolar. People with bipolar, they are like these water gods. It's just like floods going on. Trust me, a therapy session is not enough. Journaling is not enough. You can write on that book and finish it and write on another one. Sometimes you're not even making sense of what you're writing, but you need to heal, you need to process, you need to get this out there. It's a very intense thing. I've told people before that sometimes mental health, especially psychosis and mania, are like the Big Bang, a fusion or even a fission. I forgot my physics now. I haven't done physics since 2010. But like the burst of energy, a star dying, there's a supernova. People just see that bright light, but you long dead and you somewhere else by that time. So all of these emotions are happening. I remember in 2013 is the first time my pastor was there sharing scriptures as I'm getting this ton of information being channeled through me. Some of it I'm sure he would agree with. Some of it he doesn't agree with, as he's a pastor, of course. Things in this world, they in these silos and they grouped very neatly together. This is Christianity, this is Islam, this is Buddhism, this is Hindi. And then when you go to Christianity, because Jesus said, I didn't come to bring peace but a sword. My pastor did not even become a debater at that time. He was just hearing what I'm saying for himself or the church and ignoring what he needs to ignore because it's not for him.
mhm,
But he did not just jump to being, yo, hey, you are possessed by the devil. What are these things that you're saying? I don't agree with. Why are you sick? You don't have faith. He didn't do all of those things. So again, that was God making it easy for me. So maybe I'm not as his strongest soldiers because his strongest soldiers, he has given those challenges with the church and the family. But for me, it's been the outer world that's been the challenge, the career, the studies, but inner stuff, the church, myself, my family, it's been the easier part. I'm not ignorant of the world I live in. So I have seen, for example, that some churches will definitely call it demon possession. That's just how they understand it. As long as nobody is being harmed, it's just how they understand it. The only thing I can comment on is culture to behave a certain way and be a certain way. It's not just about Xhosa men, really. It's about black men. It's also about men in general. I've been watching all these episodes that you had, but I'm going to particularly speak about my experiences. For example, I lost my father in 2008. I was still in high school. And when I lost my grandfather in 2015, that just accumulated. If you go to therapy, you definitely know about these terms where things thread. Basically, you just add on, add on, add on. All of a sudden, one day there's a big bang, and then it's like, oh, where did that come from? But things have been piling up, piling up, piling up. So I, as a grown man, eventually cried into the arms of had a grand aunt. I'm not faulting her, but she immediately say, I must basically tula indoda ekhali. So which basically means that don't cry, men don't cry, which is something we've all heard even in the West. So yeah, manning up means you do not cry. That's the only thing I can mention that was negative. And because even here in Cape Town with my anchors, it's something I've definitely noticed that when I am psychotic, manic, lost my mind, those are the terms we use. But for us, it feels like, and some even believe that we are in other dimensions or other experience, whatever's going on with us. But they are so supportive, visiting at hospital, getting you to hospital, they know the right thing to do, whether they call the police or call the ambulance, they know how to assess. But when it comes to depression and anxiety, I think there's more of a stigma on depression. And I know this is very controversial because I know depression gets a lot of empathy and sympathy. But in my experience and in South Africa, in my personal experience, that has more stigma because it's not seen. It's easy to feel like you're making it up. You just don't want to go to work. Why aren't you just dragging yourself, man up? So those words I've definitely heard when it comes to depression and anxiety. Don't waste a job, for example. Us with bipolar, that's why so many are entrepreneurs full time because a traditional 9 to 5 can be challenging on our mental health and structure, especially with ADHD. But for things like that, from the traditional side, I definitely get told a lot by the women in my life and also even the men that I need to man up. A man needs to provide, you need to take care. Traditionally, that's what I can say. But as far as my church, the only complaint I have with them is something I've noticed. If you look, for example, with the story of Jesus, he went for fasting for 40 days and nights. So for him, it was straight 4 days and 40 days and night, not like me where I'm breaking my fasting at sunset. He went out into the wilderness, fasted, and then faced the devil one on one. He took his disciples, and then it was just him and God praying for this cup to be removed. There's definitely that belief when it comes to men that for our callings, we need to be on our own in the wilderness,
Mm.
facing our demons. For example, there was a time when I was trying to make sense of all the information I'm getting, going through my journey because there's an intersection with culture. Here I am, a born again Christian, touching on culture when it's pagan and touching on this. And that I had to pause on my dream of being a chartered accountant. The point was, I had a lot of resentment as well. I was like, God, what is going on? I had distanced myself from God in a traditional sense. I became quite agnostic, trying to find answers. I don't know if my pastor was even looking, but he's so comfortable with letting you be. He's not, I'm going to check up on you, see how you're doing type of mentor. He's going to be like, let me let you and God figure it out. And if you need me, you're going to come to me.
Right.
And I had about that for a long time. When I'm back home, we get along and we talk. And then
Mhm.
if I'm gone, I understand he's running a church and he's busy with all these other congregants. But him
Right.
and I were and still are very close. So I expected him to at least check in, especially because we had those long conversations when I was being manic. And that's the funny part about being manic or psychotic. There's some things you do remember, some things you don't. I remember doing that again because when I got sick again in 2024, it was literally a youth service. Shout out to them because I'm the oldest one on the youth. And they came to me to bring service because they had noticed things and they were like, okay, we're coming to bring service. And I was very happy for that. But that was the tipping point. I got very psychotic on that day. Some of them have lived very sheltered lives, very black and white understanding of good and evil and, God, the devil, and very sort of vanilla outlook and safe. So now they had to see that side of me being manic and psychotic. And luckily, my mom came. What I'm trying to say is that when they saw patterns, they didn't just stay away, at least the youth. They came and brought service to my home. From then on, my mom's friend, who's like a family friend, when I asked her the other day, can you remind me some of the things I was saying or doing? Quoted Apostle Paul, where she says, I forget what's behind me and I look forward to what's ahead of me. She really caught me with that. And I guess I've adopted it as a philosophy. What's for me is ahead of me. A mixed bag with the church, but overall positive in my personal experience. I'm not ignorant. I've seen with other churches and other people's experience, and it's mostly culture where I'm told indoda ayikali, a man doesn't cry.
Wow, what you said was very true about the culture because a lot of the stigma does come from cultural norms or expectations, manhood, and how that looks in certain communities. And I think a lot of the times we don't give people room to actually express their emotions and walk through the things that they're dealing with, especially when they have mental health conditions. And I think it's very interesting that depression and anxiety are stigmatized a little bit more than more severe mental health conditions like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. I find that very interesting because in the American side of it, more psychotic, like mental health conditions are more stigmatized than depression and anxiety because we often see it as, oh, you're depressed. We have more empathy for them, or it's more generalized information, depression, anxiety. But when it comes to bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, people don't know enough. So it's more stigmatized. We don't have enough information. And so I find it very interesting that, like you said, most of that stuff does come from the culture. And so I do want to ask, in your present culture, if there were two stigmas that you would change, what would they be?
Okay, so the first stigma I would change is a man doesn't cry. The reason why I would change that is because from a biological point of view, from an evolutionary point of view, essentially there is a time where you could have been a woman, you could have been a man, and then something told something, okay, boom, XY, then this is gonna be a man. So boom, you developed into a man. What I'm trying to say is sometimes we are so hung up on the differences between being a man and being a woman that we forget that we are all creatures created by God, ordained by God, calls both of us, ye are gods. So I think there's no one who's 100% feminine, there's no one who's 100% masculine. We are all in a spectrum, right? And we
Mhm.
need to make it okay for people to tap into different spectrums. God has given us free will. So some people don't recognize that we are given free will. And obviously, the free will has consequences, of course. You can choose to do anything and be anyone. If you care about people's opinions, you're going to be held back because it goes both ways. For example, I spoke about my pastor who I felt like he was not checking up on me, and he still really doesn't. I could say maybe because he's busy, but not even once. And maybe that's more of a masculine thing, like men not checking up on men. Who try to check up on my one closest mentee, but I realized that the drive to do that usually is hard because it feels like I'm always the one checking up, but it's not a two-way thing. It goes both ways. Sometimes it's mentors not checking up, but also other men not wanting to open up. Just because I'm against men don't cry doesn't mean I'm gonna go around forcing men to cry. Some men just don't want to cry. They don't want to open up, and that's their journey. I wish people could know that it's optional. You don't have to be this macho man for other men. You don't have to be a macho man even for other women. You just have to be yourself. And being vulnerable is okay. The second stigma I'd like to change, it's a very controversial one because I'm a Xhosa man, and you've probably heard of Nelson Mandela talking about Ubuntu. It says a person is a person because of other people, which is true even in the Western world. But how we apply it as Xhosa people is that we tend to burn ourselves to keep others warm. We don't first take care of self, pour into our own cup, and let the overflow take care of others. We tend to prioritize others in hopes that they will give to us. But they don't always do that because we live in Western times. Some people are doing the culture, other people are doing the Western thing where they, so when you need their help, they don't give it to you. I think more people, especially now, because you know me, I'm a triple M guy. I care about the money, I care about your mind, I care about your body, which is the matter. So all of these things matter. If you take care of your finances as well, that means that you also gonna be there for future generations. I do think we should try and not pour from empty cups. You can't have the blind leading the blind. It may hurt at first because we are social creatures. We take care of each other. We do everything together. But sometimes you need to draw the line because you won't be there in the future to help us.
Yeah, most definitely, especially about not pouring from an empty cup, because you can't pour from an empty cup. A lot of times we sacrifice our own health and well-being for the sake of helping others. Helping others is not a bad thing at all, but if it's coming at
Yeah.
a place where you're sacrificing yourself, that's when it comes at a cost, you know? Thank you so much for joining me today. But before we go, I have one final question for you. What advice or words of encouragement would you give to men who are struggling to manage their mental health?
Thank you so much, Sarah, for the last question. You need to look within, the answers are within. Like, this is your journey, your baby. No matter how many times people try to save you, you need to want to be saved. The people who will help you along the way will resonate with you. You should not hide your journey. When men live their life, they do it in hiding. There's a lot of shame. Like, I'm a man, I need to be a provider, but my finances are not looking too good. I need to hide that. Oh, I'm a man and I'm struggling with this addiction. I need to hide that. If you can just accept vulnerability, yes, it's your own journey and your answers are going to come from you, but just be vulnerable. I promise you, when you are vulnerable, there's nothing to be scared of. There's nothing to be shy about. Just kill that ego. The ego is an illusion. You came with nothing on this earth. You will die with nothing on this earth. So don't be so stressed out because when we pass away, a lot of people are going to forget we even existed, besides our family, and even they will go on their day to day lives and just miss us maybe twice a year. You have nothing to lose. If you live your life authentically, we live in a world that is very fake. Everybody wants to post the perfect reel. Everybody wants to sell the next content and get a brand deal, so they compromise on who they are. Everything is negotiated, everything is compromised. If you just be honest with who you are, be vulnerable. You don't have to sell an image. Be honest. I promise you that will direct you to the right people. The right people will give you the right resources. I have found that our technology also mirrors our psychology because it was made by men and women. I've noticed that if you are honest with what you Google search and what you read and what you put on your AI, those are the things that are going to be suggested to you in terms of ads and apps. The content you get will also be like that. Just be honest with yourself. The right movements, teachers, churches, the right pastors, the right spiritual leaders, the right books, all of these things will come to you if you are just honest. First things first, I believe in therapy. If you can't afford therapy, that is fine. Talk to people around you, trust people around you. If you've exhausted that, and this is very controversial, but there's a huge movement now of people using AI as a companion. I don't know how you feel about that. I'd like to hear your thoughts, but I have used it before. I remember being in crisis, but this year I do not have medical aid, so I can't get therapy. It got to a point where I called the crisis hotline and I was not feeling suicidal. So I was useless to them because they were like, okay, so you're not suicidal. How can we help you? They helped me with the first call, second call. I think with the third call, it was clear that they don't do ongoing therapy. They just there for crisis mode, like for people who are suicidal. Right now, I'm using one from my scholarship therapy, but they've told me you need to get your own therapy. We are there for 3 sessions. With those 3 sessions, you will just be grounded and then get your own therapy. People need to explore it, but it's controversial. I've gotten feedback of people saying it tells you what you want to hear. For me, it doesn't prompt enough. It just waits for you to be the driving force. You need to be very intentional if you're going to use it. If you stop asking questions, it's not going to pop up saying, hey, are you still there? My advice is look within, you know the answers, the information is there, trust yourself, because a lot of men don't tap into instinct enough. Tap into yourself, you will find your path, and the right people will gravitate towards you. That I do guarantee. There will always be people, you are not alone. In conclusion, I'd like to dedicate the verse Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the custom of some, but encouraging one another, and so much the more as you see the day drawing near. So, guys, even as men, the power of fellowship, whether you're fellowshipping with people at work or at church, even the gym. When I'm at gym, I sometimes think to myself, wow, this place is so holy. Like being in a gym is a very good place, very cliche, but yes, find something, find gym, find God, but find something that can be a solace.
Thank you so much, Mzwa, for joining me today. And where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Thank you so much, Sarah. You can find me. I have a blog where I do a lot of my writing. I write poems, I write articles, I write different things. You can search Medium, Medium, and then search Mzwa Manliya. Mzwa Manliya is Mzwa, Mzwa, space, and then my surname is Manliya, Manciya. Mzwa Manliya. You will find my blog. My mental health page is bipolar underscore black underscore bear. My personal Instagram is dot mania, Mzwa Anciya. For now, I do not have a website. It's just social media. I do have a Facebook account. I do have a TikTok account in the bipolar black bear, which is bipolar underscore black underscore bear.
All right. Well, thank you once again. This was a great conversation. I'll definitely have all the links in the description so everyone could check it out. But thank you again.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.
And everyone, stay tuned for more empowering episodes on Rough Edges. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. If you want more updates on the podcast, you can follow on Instagram at rough.edges.podcast, or you can visit the official podcast website at roughedgespodcast.com. Thanks again for listening and have a wonderful day.